Hello, everyone. Did you know that May is National Mental Health Month? Because of this, a broadcasting company out of New York contacted me and asked me to do a radio interview with them to talk about how the coronavirus is impacting people's mental health. So, in this newsletter, I decided to expand upon that subject. This broadcast company was offering a give back to communities all over the world by highlighting various professionals who are available to help people during these challenging times. My name is Karna Sunby. I'm a master practitioner of NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. I have an office at Peak Health and Wellness in Missoula, Montana. And I do NLP. So, what is NLP? NLP is a modality of psychology which helps people change the way they think so that they can literally change their lives. Your brain is like a human computer system, and NLP was developed in the 70s to study how your brain's computer system stores your life experiences, like your memories, your beliefs, your emotions. It's almost like the way a computer stores information. The founders of NLP developed processes to actually change the programs in your brain which limit you so that you can create the outcomes that you want in your life. So, with clients who are experiencing anxiety during the pandemic, NLP processes can help change the way the stress or anxiety is being wired in their brains so that they don't get stuck in the feeling of fear. One thing I've noticed as we have continued to be impacted by the virus is that I've seen an increase in anxiety amongst my clients. Recently, a client told me, I lost my job and I feel like part of my identity is gone. I had a client in New York tell me that she's having panic attacks in public places and she's never experienced anxiety before in her life. And a teenager said to me recently, I'm sad and I'm mad and I'm afraid all at the same time, and I don't know what to do. Globally, everyone's world has been turned upside down and inside out. Many people are feeling anxiety. I mean, there are so many uncertain things going on, and people have health concerns and they're financial stress. They're worried about the economy and the stock market. Some people feel anxiety because they're all alone, while others are stressed because their house is packed with their family all day. I have clients who are homeschooling their kids, and they're telling me that they're going crazy. Everyone is responding differently to the pandemic because we are all so unique, and we're living in different circumstances. My clients in LA and California are having a much harder time than my clients here in Montana. And these days, there are so many suggestions online and in the media for how to deal with stress and anxiety during these times. In fact, I have a list on my website of 25 ways to deal with stress. So I thought, since my expertise is in how the brain works, I would talk about what actually causes people to feel anxiety and what is the impact, the toll of so much stress and anxiety over time. So, first of all, what I'm going to tell you a couple things about how the brain works that cause anxiety. For most people, anxiety is a future-oriented state of mind. People start worrying about what might happen, projecting mental scenarios, most of which will never actually occur. So I coach clients to develop techniques for how to mentally reel yourself back to the present and therefore feel more empowered, more able to cope with your current situation. Because worrying is actually never helpful. Have you ever noticed that? I mean, how much has worrying ever helped you solve a problem? Someone once told me that worrying is like praying for what you don't want. So that's one thing that causes anxiety, worrying about the future, projecting like that. Another thing that happens in times of crisis is that our brains tend to inflate the risk. Our brains are not designed to make us happy. Our brains are wired toward the negative and are really good at focusing on potential threats. It's an evolutionary thing. From an evolutionary perspective, this is what our brains are supposed to do. It's a part of our built-in fight or flight response to focus on things which could harm us. And we're in the middle of a pandemic which could harm us. So our brains want to protect us by looking for potential threats and creating all of these what if scenarios in our head. And as a result, it's hard to maintain a bigger picture perspective. So those are a couple fundamental ways that the brain tends to create anxiety. But there is a cost. If we become prisoners to the anxiety stemming from the virus, ongoing stress can have a serious impact on our bodies, and living in fear can create patterns of negative thinking. And then you run the risk of becoming someone who defaults towards negativity and fear. So we have to find balance in our lives. If you were to just sit every day and never exercise, it would take a toll on your body. If you eat only desserts, it will take a toll on your body. And if you become accustomed to worrying every day, feeling constant anxiety and stress, it'll take a toll on your mental and emotional health. Feeling anxious could become your new normal. So there are many ways that I teach clients to stay balanced, to manage their thoughts, and to shift their negative emotions. Sometimes doing meditation or guided visualization is one way that I've helped them. But the best way to stay balanced is to be aware of how you're feeling. And then when you notice that you're feeling stressed, use some tool or some activity to shift your thinking, to relax instead for a while. It can be anything from watching a funny video to talking to a friend, to exercising, to meditating, to yoga or deep breathing, anything to shift your attention away from the stress for a while. You can also sign up for a session with me. I help clients learn to pivot away from negative emotions, and I use NLP processes which actually change the neural pathways of negative thinking. So what are neural pathways, you may ask? Well, in our brain, we have neurons which communicate from cell to cell and carry messages. And when neurons fire repeatedly and these messages travel the same pathway over and over again in our brain, what's called a neural pathway is created. It's actually like a deep groove in the brain tissue. It's kind of like a roadway for circuitry in the brain. And neuroplasticity research has shown that neurons that fire together wire together. So with enough repetition over these roadways in the brain, automatic behavior occurs. Some examples are like reading or driving or riding a bike. These are examples of very complicated behaviors that we do automatically because neural pathways have formed. So let's imagine someone who's feeling stress all day. In that case, a circuit in their brain for anxiety is firing repeatedly. And as it fires more and more, it can become this person's new default setting. This is often how anxiety, panic attacks, and even phobias literally become wired into the brain. This is how people actually develop an emotional default setting, a default setting for anxiety. And when anxiety becomes our default, it's easy to get triggered to feel more and more anxiety. So what does it mean when a person gets triggered? Just imagine something happens. A person sees something or hears something or feels something which in the past wouldn't have bothered them, and now it causes them to feel anxious or angry or fearful or sad. That person is getting triggered to feel the negative emotion which now has a neural pathway in their brain because they have been practicing it so much. Whatever you practice, you'll get good at. If you practice tennis or the piano every day, you'll get really good at playing tennis or playing the piano. And if you practice getting stressed and anxious every day, that's what you'll get good at and who you'll become. I have new clients these days who are suddenly having anxiety attacks out of the blue. So another thing I'm discovering is that some people are being triggered during this current pandemic by times of trauma from their past. And sometimes they don't even really remember the past trauma or think that it's a big deal anymore. For example, I have a client who's been having anxiety attacks out of the blue. The beauty of the modality that I use, neuro-linguistic programming, is that we can trace current unwanted emotions back to the time when they first began in a person's life. So with this client, we traced her anxiety back to a time over 20 years ago when her husband died, a time when she felt out of control and helpless, which is what she's feeling right now during this pandemic, out of control and helpless. I used NLP processes to help her change the way in which that traumatic event from the past was coded in her mind. So we were actually able to literally desensitize the memory of her husband's death and undo the wiring that held it in place in her mind. We created new neural pathways for healing using NLP, almost like a new story she can remember and feel healing instead of fear and anxiety. And then I give her simple tools to use so that she uses these tools, and the new neural pathways that we create get stronger and stronger with repetition until she has a new normal. Now this client of mine is no longer being triggered by her past pain, and her anxiety has lessened. And all of that happened in one session on the phone. I've helped hundreds of clients free themselves from all kinds of trauma. I've worked with first responders who have experienced extreme violence, people who have experienced physical, emotional, mental abuse, and I've worked with a lot of people who have experienced sexual abuse. I've worked with people who have trauma from accidents and disasters, all kinds of trauma that cause human beings to suffer. In the radio interview I did recently, one of the questions the interviewer asked was, "Where do you see yourself in the near future?" I answered him by saying that everyone will be changed as a result of the coronavirus. I was talking recently to my teenage granddaughter, and I said that one sentence to her. Everyone will be changed as a result of the coronavirus. And she just started talking, saying, "I know, Nana. I've realized that I'm never alone. I'm usually always with my friends, or I'm at the mall, or I'm in school. I'm never alone with myself. And I didn't even begin to know who I was until this is happening now." We ended up having the deepest talk we've probably ever had. And now she's painting. She's starting to paint and write poetry. I think that these days of being at home are giving people time to reflect and think about how they can take what they're learning during this time and make their life better. I also think that many people will be suffering from their losses for quite some time. And we can't even imagine what our healthcare workers, our first responders, our frontline workers are experiencing. I think that many people will be suffering from PTSD in the future. So to answer his question, how do I see myself in the near future? I see myself being available to help people heal. That's why I'm offering free 30-minute free consultations to explore with people how I might be able to help them. And I'm offering my sessions, my services to people on a sliding scale so that anybody who wants some help from me can have it. I work with clients all over the world on Zoom and on the phone. For the past 20 years, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients, from children to seniors whose issues range from stress management, and trauma, and PTSD to the emotions of dealing with a life-threatening disease. My goal is always to help people overcome their inner struggles so that they can enjoy their life. I'm a master practitioner of NLP, and I'm also a certified coach, a life coach. And I can help people in all the ways a normal coach works, doing strategic thinking, goal setting, creating accountability plans. But my expertise in NLP sets me apart from other coaches because I can also help clients figure out what's stopping them from achieving those goals. I can help people change their negative thinking and their emotional imprints from the past so that they can be free of those and move into the future and create the outcomes they want in life. You can check out my website to read how I've helped other people, inneraccess.org. And feel free to send me an email to set up your free 30-minute consultation. And as I said earlier, if you decide to do a session with me, I'm offering my services on a sliding scale so that anybody who wants help from me during this time can get it. So stay safe and healthy, be well. Thank you.